Right now, technically speaking, I'm broke, but before you know it, I'll be rich, and it's all because of how I manage my money. Being in touch with my money helps me make huge financial progress, but I don't want it to run my life. I've set up really easy systems, so managing my money takes me an hour total every single month. So I thought it'd be helpful to sit down, talk through the bank accounts I have, including savings and investments, talk about how I decide where to move my money, my current debt payoff journey, how I use credit cards and manage that without going into more credit card debt, how my boyfriend and I split our expenses, and then of course, how I actually manage my money. The budget template that I used is linked down below, and we will get into that. Let's start with where I keep all of my money, and at the end of the video, I'll explain how I manage it. When it comes to bank accounts, I like separation. So what I do is I have one bank account that I treat as a funnel. All of my money goes into that account, and then I move it to where it needs to be. I do this rather than have my deposits all fall into different accounts because it helps me keep easier track of my income and control where everything's going. For this funnel account, I wanted it to be at a bank that I could walk into if I had any issues, so I chose a local credit union. All of my income from my full-time job as an OT and then any like side hustle income from babysitting or dog sitting goes into this account, except for pre-tax investments and savings that go to my 401k and HSA. Then from here, my living expenses and personal expenses get paid out of this account, and I move my post-tax investments and savings accordingly. I have technically four savings accounts. The first is a savings account that lives at the same bank as my funnel account, and this has 1 month's worth of expenses in it. I also have a savings account for sinking funds that I set up specifically at a bank that lets me have different buckets for my savings. So within one account, I can organize the money. This is absolutely unnecessary. It just works really well for my brain. My sinking funds are expenses that I know are going to crop up during the year, so I save a little bit each month to build up the savings over a longer period of time. For me right now, my sinking funds are for gifts, travel, credit card fees, my ski pass, and car maintenance. I save between $10 and $100 each for these things, and it's allowed me to build up a pretty sizable bucket in each account. The other benefit of a sinking fund is that by having the money dedicated for the item, it's emotionally easier for me to spend versus if I just had one large savings account and saw that number go down, I wouldn't have as easy a time mentally spending on these things, and these are things that I want to be able to spend on, like travel and my ski pass. Knowing that I have the money set aside makes it a lot easier for me to stomach spending on these things. They're also large expenses that if I had to foot that bill in 1 month, it would make it really challenging. Saving just a little bit over the course of a year makes it very easy. In total, I save $220 a month towards my sinking fund. So obviously this money isn't tied up for those items. If I had an emergency, this would be an extra spot that I could pull from as well. The last account I have though is my emergency fund, and right now I have it fully funded at $10,000. I'm not going to put any more money in this account while I pay off debt, but I think ideally I would like to have more like $20,000 if not $30,000 in an emergency fund, so that will be a goal for the future. And then the reason I said 3 or 4 accounts is because I do have an HSA technically. I do have it. I don't technically have it. I do have an HSA. My work contributes savings to that HSA, so I don't really contribute much extra to that. In terms of investment accounts, I have a 401k through my work, which I invest up to the match for, and then I have a Roth IRA, which I fund monthly and just dollar cost average my investments. So I do max that one out, but just in chunks over months. So that's where my money that I keep lives. What about the money that I spend? Where is that going? The biggest expense that I have right now is paying off my debt. I am aggressively paying this off, so over 50% of my income from my job as an occupational therapist goes towards this. I have lots of videos about exactly how I'm doing this and how it's going, so we don't need to spend too much time on this, but currently I have paid off, I need a calculator. I didn't actually calculate this before the video, but I figured it'd be helpful to share. Currently, I have been working for about 10 months and have paid off $37,000 in student loan debt. It's pretty cool. I'm sharing super transparent regular debt updates as well as monthly financial updates as I get my financial crap together, so subscribe and tag along for the process. Now, credit cards. I put 100% of my spending on credit cards. I know, you're gasping. I have a pretty strict budget for my personal spending of $200 per month, and I pay my credit cards in full every single month. This strategy has gotten me to a credit score of around 800 without ever having additional debt or any rollover on my credit cards. I also earn points on these credit cards, and that allows me to reduce how much I spend on travel. We'll talk about it more, but I do track all of my expenses, so what's on my credit cards is never a surprise, and I just pay the balances in full. This money comes out of my funnel account, so I know it's always there because I'm very in tune with my income and expenses. If you're just getting your finances together and wanting to figure out a system that will work for you, my first step would be to track all of your expenses. There's no way you can guess how much you're spending if you don't actually track it. Once I knew what I was spending on, I was able to set a better budget so that I could plan realistically. Having a strict budget helps me spend spend in alignment with what my actual goals are and what I actually want my lifestyle to be like. Now, I live with my boyfriend and we split our expenses. Our combined expenses include his mortgage, property taxes, insurances, groceries, combined savings, fund money, and then my minimum student loan debt payment. For these expenses, I pay 1/3 and he pays 2/3. Right now, our money is separate and I Venmo him my share every single month and then pay my student loan debt payment. We both also have personal spending that we use our incomes for, and then I make additional payments to my student loan debt and my investments all from my personal income. So with all this money all over the place, it sounds like it would be a nightmare to manage, but it's really not. I keep track of it all on a spreadsheet, all digitally. And there was a little bit of front end work to getting that set up, but now I spend a total of an hour per month on my finances. I just input my income, expenses, and transfers that I make into the spreadsheet, and it's all kept track of. So I open the spreadsheet once or twice a week just to put the information in. I get paid every other Friday. So usually every other Friday I take 10 minutes to input my expenses and move any money that needs to be moved. Right now I budget based on my income that I make as a full-time occupational therapist. But I manually pay my loans, I manually pay Jake, and I manually keep track of all my other expenses. So honestly, what takes the most time is logging into all the different things. I have to log into my loan servicer to pay my loans. I really should automate this, but it's really satisfying to me and gives me like a dopamine rush, so I want to do it manually. On payday, I'll log into my loan servicer and I'll pay whatever I can towards my loans. And when I say whatever I can, it's not just willy-nilly. I know that I put $2,100 of my own money to my loans, but in my brain, it's just simpler if my first paycheck, I pay my minimum payments for each loan, and then my second paycheck, I pay the extra money. So my minimum payments are now $1,100 because I just paid off a loan, and my additional payments will be about $1,000. So from my first paycheck, I'll put $1,100 to my loans and have about $900 left over. And as soon as I hit send on a transfer, I log it wherever it needs to be logged in my budget spreadsheet. This helps me know that A, the transfer has been made for the month, and it helps me see my cash flow accordingly. I can look at my spreadsheet at the end of the month and know that I paid my boyfriend, I allocated savings accordingly, I allocated my investments accordingly, I paid my debt, and I allocated money for me to spend. What's nice about how I set up my spreadsheet is I can allocate money before I actually spend it. This is especially helpful for my variable spending. So I can set aside $200 for variable spending, knowing that that's mine to spend if I want to, and still see my cash flow and know if I have extra money to put towards financial goals. My income is slightly variable. It's not the exact same every single paycheck, so this is really helpful for me. And then the other thing that's helpful for me for that is if I allocate those $200 to my variable spending, but I don't spend it all, it rolls over to the next month and I can see that bucket build. So this helps me keep a count of variations in my spending over time, because it's normal to have variations in spending, and I used to feel really guilty if I overspent in a category, even if I had been really strict in that category for months prior. And I don't personally pay our utilities. I secondarily pay those by paying Jake what I owe him. But if I did, having a set amount each month for something like electricity that varies, but you know your average throughout the year, is really helpful to have that amount roll over every single month so that you can budget predictably. So on paydays, I sit down and I make transfers, and then every single Monday I sit down and I track my expenses. This takes me about 5 minutes, and I've talked about before how I'm always a little bit anxious when I sit down to track my expenses, and then I always wind up feeling better after I've actually done it. And in total, the process to track my expenses takes less than 5 minutes. So with less than an hour every single month, I am constantly touching base with my finances, and I know where everything is going and what progress I'm making in my goals. And I like being hands-on with my money because it helps me see this progress, and that's super motivating. It also helps me feel really good when I do spend money because I know exactly where my money's going, and I know that I have the money to spend if I want to. It's no longer all a mystery that's just filled with stress. It's actually become super fun. What a nerd. Building these habits while I'm young and just getting started has allowed me to put myself on the fast track for my financial future. And I'm very grateful for that. I used to say, oh, I'll save more when I have money, or oh, I'll invest more when I have money. And then one day I was just like, heck, right now I'm making money and I don't fully understand what it is. So I took accountability and got to it. I only wish I would have started building these habits sooner. If my budget template looks like a helpful tool that you would like to use, it is linked down below and will save you a lot of the front end work of getting started. Hopefully seeing how I organize my money and how I think about money helps you, and I will see you next week.